We will get this going. Should we start off with roll call?
Tyler?
Here.
Kim's absent. John?
Here.
Deb?
Here.
Andrew?
Here.
Okay. Are there any amendments or changes to the agenda? No?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Looks like our first line of business is public forum. Steve from NAPTDESCO.
Sure. Thank you, Deb. Thanks for the opportunity to visit with you tonight and to present a very brief overview of the district's insurance policy. I think we do this on an annual basis, and we'll kind of walk through this fairly quickly. Gail's going to put the PowerPoint up on the screen. I think it was in the packet. And I'm Steve Goodyear with NAPTDESCO Insurance. I'm joined this evening by Susan Hosher. So let me just kind of jump right in, and we'll make a few comments. If you go to the next slide, Gail. Just a reminder, the district is insured for all aspects of the insurance with the exception of work comp with EMC insurance. And EMC insures about 98% of the districts in the state of Iowa. They're an A-rated company. We've been doing business with EMC for over 75 years. And one of the benefits of being a part of EMC and a part of their school program is they return a portion of their profits on an annual basis through a dividend. And I put a summary there. You'll see what they've returned in the past 5 years, just over $105,000, which is really a nice benefit to the Gilbert School District and to being a part of the program. SFM Insurance is what we call work comp carrier. They're based out of Bloomington, Minnesota. We moved the work comp away from EMC to SFM back in 2017, and they're specialists in what they do. I think the district's been very pleased. We certainly have been pleased as well with that relationship, and they too provide a dividend. We've only received one dividend from them, but we'll receive another one, or you will, in this approaching year, but it's $15,000. So just a reminder, that's where the district's insurance is at. Next slide, please. We're going to just do a quick summary of some of the coverages here. You'll see the total property limits here, just under $64 million in blanket building limits. We insure each of the buildings separately, but then we provide a blanket over the top of all those buildings and structures. Business personal property are your contents, furniture, fixtures, equipment, anything that's included within those buildings of just under $6 million. And then property and open is the football stadium, press boxes, lights, track, any other items, greenhouse, any other items of that nature, just over $5 million. So I thought you might find interest in knowing there's just under $75 million of total property value that we insure, and EMC insures as well for the district. And we will, of course, revise and increase that number once the construction is complete. And then just a summary of other coverages. We've got 21 buses, 9 vehicles, there's $6 million in general liability. There's a $15 million excess policy provided through EMC. That's a group policy. You all are covered, public officials liability, employment practices, and many, many other coverages. I might mention, Susan and I met with Gail and Lindsay just about 2 weeks ago. We go through all the coverages in a fair amount of detail and make sure we've got everything properly documented and insured properly. So just a quick summary of those coverages. Next slide. Here's the highlight of the presentation tonight. If you look back to the 2015 or even 16-17 year, EMR, just a reminder, stands for Experience Modification Rate. And that is a rate that is used to assess and measure the district's safety and safety record. There's a calculation that goes into that. But the baseline where you want this district to be is 1.00 or below. And the benefit of that is anything below 1.00, you begin to accumulate discounts on your work comp premiums. Anything above that, you're paying more. So if you go back to 2015-16, the district was paying 17% more than you would under normal rates, 21% in 16-17. And you'll see the claim activity, though not significant a number of claims. There were large claims being paid out in those time frames, and the mod was impacted by that. And so last year the mod was 1.11, and this year I'm pleased to report to you that the mod is 0.91 as we start the new year, July 1. And this is a really significant achievement for the district. I'm going to talk in a later slide why I think we've made that progress as a district and with our partnership. Even though the district had 9 claims in 18-19, one of those claims was fairly significant. And so all the rest of those claims are $1,000 or less. They were med pay only, which does not hurt the district in its mod, but really is a wonderful achievement for the district and a real significant highlight of tonight's presentation. So next slide. Here's the summary of the premium. And you'll see the premium is actually down about $10,000 with the renewal this year on July 1. You'll see some of the package premiums are up with EMC. Some of the property values went up. We increased property values on an annual basis to account for inflation. We added some new buses this year. Some of the districts across the state, not this district, but some of the districts across the state that are part of EMC had some liability claims. And so EMC took a little bit of rate there, but not a significant increase. Work comp actually went down, as you can see, about $18,000, and the total package was down $10,000 at this year's renewal. And I just put this historical reference in. If you go back to 2016-17, that's before we moved the work comp to SFM, the premium was $283,000. So you can see there we're down, not quite $70,000 in premium, but it's a significant decrease for the district. I'll just kind of wrap up with this. I think one of the reasons the mod rate is down is really a tribute to Lindsay and the staff and the safety committee that's been put in place back in 2017. We put that in place really to begin to address and develop a workplace culture, if you will, a safe workplace culture. You'll see some of the things that we've done. We've done some training for teachers and food service and building and grounds. We did a study back in 2016 to address some of that and have done a fair amount of training. The safety committee went out and did a building self-audit, a walkthrough, if you will. We went through all the buildings and inspected those, looked for risk, if you will, as we went through those. We coordinated with Tim and did a Play with Purpose presentation. Sometimes we find some claims affiliated with coaches, and we did a presentation there, and I think we're addressing that. We've done some CPR, fire extinguisher, AED training. I think the chief's in the room, and we did actually coordinated that with the Gilbert Fire Chief. And a couple things we're working on as we speak. I think staff's working on a winter safety grant program. Got it submitted. It's $2,500. I think the district will be successful for that. And then here's something new, and we talked about having a ladder here tonight.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your ladder out.
That's all right, we got a picture in the next slide. But the number one teacher claim, if you look across the state of Iowa, is slips and falls. And the number two most occurring incident within a slip and fall are teachers standing on chairs. And teachers tend to do that. They're in a hurry. They want to pull something from an upper shelf or whatever the case may be. And so through our discussion at the safety committee level, we talked about purchasing some step ladders. And I've got a picture of one in the next slide, but purchasing some step ladders that teachers could use to retrieve and use if they need to reach upper heights. And so I don't know to what extent. I know there were a couple used in this building this year, Amy, but I don't know to what extent they were used in the other buildings. But there are 2 step ladders in each of the 4 buildings. I think an email was sent out indicating where those step ladders were placed. And
Tiger Steps.
Tiger Steps, and we
Tiger
named this
Steps.
Tiger Steps. And the hope and intent is that teachers and other faculty members would use these step ladders if they need to reach higher spaces and not stand on chairs. And if we can just eliminate one claim, that's certainly a benefit. And we were pleased, NAPTDESC was pleased to sponsor those along with the safety committee. Just backing up real quick, I'll just close. We did some training this past year with food service, also with building grounds on lifting. We're going to come back and do some more training this fall on stretching as those food service and other building and grounds folks are doing things. We've done some AED and CPR training, as I mentioned. That might actually be the chief in the photo there. And our agency has been pleased to partner with the district on a breakfast that we do annually to kick off the new school year. And we're happy to do that. Please do that as a part of our partnership with Gilbert Community School District. So thank you for the opportunity. Be happy to take any questions before we wrap up.
Steve, on the coverage, back to the package that went up, and you mentioned increased valuation. Is that factoring in the new projects, or what is that all?
It does not factor in the new building values yet. We've got some builder's risk insurance coverage in there, but we had a couple new buses, I think, this past year. Usually EMC will take about a 4% increase in the building values on an annual basis, and that's just to keep up with inflation. And there was a little bit of an increase there for liability losses across the state, not certainly related to this district, but it's a combination of several things.
So as we look at a $14 million project across the district, then that'll be reflected next year?
You'll be reflected next year. Property rates in general won't impact that premium a great deal, but we're going to actually sit down in October. We're going to go through, and this was Gail suggesting, we're going to go through all the buildings again. May need some help from Story and Hala on that, but going to go through all the structures, going to go through all the contents listing, and make sure we've got everything properly insured. But I wouldn't expect that premium to increase much, Tyler, as we add those values. Other questions?
I think the penguin walk thing must have played a significant
Penguin walk is
all
good.
the signs about making sure you do the penguin walk. Did you guys not see those?
Yeah, that's something SFM provides, and it is.
SFM does a great job at information, like they'll send out videos and they have flyers and videos, and once in a while there is some that are kind of funny, and I pass those on. And you know, if it's going to be rainy or icy, you know, that stage where it's like, hey, you know, employees, be careful, tomorrow morning it's going to be, you know, icy or something. I send out, they have information out there that I use. It's just so, it's kind of fun to use. And see if I get any responses is the fun part. See if who's watching it and reading their emails. Yeah. So
It's catchy.
I would echo the same thing. You know, working with Steve and EMC and Susan and any of the crew there, we're paying for a product, but we also pay for that service, and they deliver great service for us. If we have a question, we can pick up the phone. Usually they know my voice when I call. I don't know if that's good or bad, but we have a good working relationship, and I appreciate that from our end.
Thank you, Lindsay. And thank you all for the relationship. We really appreciate the business and the relationship we have with the districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, next up we have Tom Hackett with Public Safety Radio System Tower.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate you having us in here. Again, my name is Tom Hackett. I'm a Squaw Valley resident. I've got 3 kids in the school district, so once again appreciate you letting us come in and speak with you. Tonight is really just kind of an overview of a project that we approached the superintendent a few weeks ago about, and that's a radio upgrade project that we're trying to do countywide. I've got a few different people, part of the team that is working on this that's here tonight. We want to be able to answer any questions that you guys might have. Just to run through and introduce them real quickly. I've got Steve Holmes with Raycom, who is the vendor that's building the system for us. Mike Milas, who'll be doing a portion of this presentation tonight. He's with Mission Critical Partners, who we have contracted with to help us through the project, try to build out this system. I've got Rob Bowers here with Iowa State University Police. He and I, Nick Lenny as well with the Story County Sheriff's Office, we are part of the working group team that is handling a lot of the day-to-day contacts and work that needs to happen throughout the next year and a half or so to try to get this project built. And then Chief Ziesness here with the Gilbert Fire Department as well. So again, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. Our purpose here tonight is just a real quick overview on what we're going to be proposing for the school board and the school in general. Kind of explain a little bit more about the particular site for the tower that we're proposing, and then kind of the process explanation as well, and again, answer any questions that you guys might have. Make sure that we're all on the same page, make sure that we're addressing any needs that you guys might have as we move forward. So let's go to the next slide. Again, I believe I've run through everybody that I've got here tonight. Myself, again, part of the Storycom working group. The Storycom Board of Directors is made up of various elected members that are trying to manage or oversee the project once it's complete. And that's made up of members from the City of Ames, Iowa State University, Story County, the Story County Sheriff's Office, and the 911 Board. I think that's it. So, I'm going to turn it over to Mike if he can kind of walk through some of the sites that we're looking at and building out the project.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. My name is Mike Milas. In the way of background, I spent my first career in law enforcement in Wisconsin as an elected county sheriff there, and I've been doing public safety consulting for a while, and our firm focuses on public safety consulting. So in the way of an overview, the first question is why is a new system needed? And very briefly, they're operating on a system that's privately owned. Right now, it's probably almost 30 years old, and oddly enough, it doesn't have any sites in the county. And so the analogy I use with radio is that it's a lot like light. And if you imagine you were trying to read in this room and there weren't any lights in here, but they were all outside of the room, it wouldn't work so awfully well. And so in the end, we did an analysis and we validated what they already knew. They're in sore need of a new system. They really have many, many areas in the county, and especially inside many buildings where when the firefighters or the EMS or law enforcement go there, they're not talking or they're not being heard. And so the need was real, and the group got together as a consortium. You're familiar with 2080 agreements in Iowa, and so those entities, as Tom described, the county, City of Ames, Iowa State, and the Story County 911 Board entered into a 2080 agreement and formed StoryCom, and StoryCom is going to build and manage the system. So the purpose of why StoryCom was formed was to put a new public safety radio system in, something that will be publicly owned by the consortium, and have what we call an extended life, something that's a big investment, and hopefully they get 15, 20, 25 years out of it. Not that they won't have to do certain upgrades along the way. You know how computers and phones are now. Every 3 or 5 years you're doing something to upgrade, but it'll have a long life to it. And so one of the things that intrigued the group who looked at the proposals and made a selection when they selected Raycom was Raycom came in and said, look, your system isn't very good at all today. It's going to take 1.5 to 2 years to build a new one. We'd like to offer an interim system or a temporary system. And so building off a couple of sites that Raycom owns, Wallace Hall and ISU, and one additional site, they're going to actually put a temporary system in to make things better. That was also necessary because their system, their 30-year-old system, is actually end of life for support, and one of the sites that is working off of today is going away in June of next year, and so it was going to go from bad to awful. And so they really came up to with a plan to do this in 2 stages. Next slide, please. So the temporary interim system is going to have 4 sites. Wallace Hall. Wallace Hall is also going to be a site in the permanent system. Zering area, and we're actually working with Colonesco School District, who is open to the concept of putting a temporary site on one of their facilities, and 2 sites owned by Raycom. Next slide, please. The permanent system is going to have 5 sites. Again, Wallace Hall on ISU, a site in the Zering area. It'll probably be a site where we lease some property from a local farmer. The Justice Center in Nevada, there'll be a site behind the Justice Center in Nevada. And we're actually talking with the Collins-Maxwell School District about putting a site on a parcel that they own to give coverage down in the Cambridge area. And the 5th site would be here in the Gilbert area if you so agree on Gilbert School District property. Next slide, please. So I'm going to let Steve come up and help a little bit to orient this, but we're over here, right? There's your new building, and so the parcel that we're talking about is this parcel, and you'll see another slide that'll basically show you that it's this corner of that parcel, about as close as we can get to that side property line and about as close back as we can get from the road to keep the majority of that property usable for whatever you want to do now or in the future. And Lindsay helped us walk that, and we talked about different placements on there, and that's the one that seemed to make the most sense and would be the least disruptive. I should say that when we do plans like this, when Raycom does plans like this, the sites work in concert with each other, and it's a bit of a puzzle, and so we don't have to have a site in any particular place, but we have to have a site near a certain location for the design to work the way it's supposed to work. And so we have a little flexibility, but not a lot of flexibility. And the point is, this site works. It works in the puzzle. So next slide, please. And this is just a graphic that's an illustration of what the tower is going to look like. It's not that different from a normal cell tower that you're going to find. There's going to be a couple of antennas near the top that are actually the transmit and receive antennas, and then there'll be 2 microwave dishes.
Yeah, we'll actually have 3 microwaves.
3 microwave
Yeah.
dishes on this one.
Because
so.
of Tizzering, but yep.
All the sites are going to be connected by microwave, and that's how they communicate with each other. So kind of a typical, and the height here, Steve?
It's 250 feet.
250.
And I guess one thing to really point out on this, it's a freestanding lattice type tower as opposed to the guide towers. So everything fits inside the compound. You don't have big wires sticking out from it.
It's actually a pretty compact footprint. All right, next slide, please. So Steve, why don't you explain just a little bit here about the actual compound?
Yeah, so this is the compound design up in, if I could borrow the pointers, if I could. Yeah. In the very northwest corner of your property on the middle school ground, the gravel road, and then we bring a gravel access road into a compound. This is a 50 by 50 area. We've got a 10 by 20 shelter, emergency generator, and its associated LP tank. Typically, we'll put screening around there. Again, this is will depend on what zoning ordinances require and also what you want. But a lot of times, especially in this type of setting, they'll want some screening, usually a evergreen type yew plant that's easy to maintain and well mulched. And then the tower will be in the center of that. The lease area itself, we typically recommend a 200 by 200 foot leased area, because even though we're only building a 50 by 50 compound to make this happen, and you guys are no stranger to construction, you know what it takes to make things happen, it will pretty much be all over this area during the construction process.
And of course, it'll be fenced and secure. It'll be alarmed back to the sheriff's office, environmental alarms, security alarms, power out alarms, and things like that, as will all the sites be. Next slide, please. So process steps, we're hoping that we can receive your all approval or consent to proceed with putting together a lease for this. We've already done some outreach to Gilbert zoning, and the preliminary feedback is positive, but we have to go through a process, but we don't believe there'll be any issues, at least none have come to light so far. We'd return back to you with a finalized lease agreement later this fall.
I'm going to just jump in, and just for your information as well, we have had some preliminary conversation with the mayor as well. And he's asked us to give a brief kind of informational overview for the city council. So we'll be leaving here when we're done with this tonight. We'll head into the rescheduled city council meeting tonight to try to give them an up-to-date overview on what we're planning.
Just to add into what Tom's saying, right now the board is, I've given them some little bit of a background. They're just hearing the details tonight, so there will not be any approval tonight. You're just kind of getting a feel for what their thoughts are. And if we're going to move forward, then we have to go through, they've already done this with the cell tower, we have to go through our legal means. We talked to Tom and I, we talked about that. And we have to go through the public hearing for the lease and things like that. This is just to make sure that you understand what they're talking about. So when you have all these experts here, if you have any questions, please ask them, because there's a lot to this.
Right. And we're working hard to try to feel good that the sites that we've selected are going to pan out. Because if one, for whatever reason, the site doesn't pan out, then we really have a redesign effort that has to take place. And if that's going to happen, we want to know sooner rather than later, because there is a need for this to move forward in a timely manner. So the work could begin as early as late this year. Certainly right after the first of the year, depending on weather and things like that. The new system would basically be constructed next year and tested in the fall, and hopefully by the end of next year, everyone would transition to the new system. The temporary system is actually going to be available by probably January 1st, and then people will probably transition over to that shortly after the first of the year, sometime between January and June for the temporary system. So I believe that's where we can move forward, but I think that was the last slide. So really it's replacing a system that's not meeting public safety needs today. Implementation of a significantly enhanced system which is going to improve coverage and reliability. And coverage is basically the Verizon commercial that used to be so popular. Can you hear me now? If the answer is no too often, it's a safety problem for public safety. So you want the answer to "can you hear me now" be yes almost all the time, and that's what this design will do. It'll have an extended life, and it has a sustainable funding model with the shared funding between all the user agencies. Be locally owned and operated by Storycom, not a private system. And then it'll enhance safety for public safety staff and enhance safety for the community. I did want Captain Lenny to just speak briefly sort of about the extra benefit for the school district with a site that would be pretty close here to your campus.
Yeah, Nick Lenny, Chief Deputy for the Sheriff's Office. Want to thank you for your time to be here to present. I know all the administrators very well, Vic, Mike, Amy, Stacy, he's not here, it doesn't look like him. Oh, sorry, Stacy. You can snap me out. I'm glad to see you. But we've forged a great relationship with the admin team here, whether it's our ALICE program or the recently P3 campus program that we brought in. I was fortunate enough to sit on the safety committee group that Gilbert has established. I think it's been very productive so far. You guys have done a great job in acting on those safety improvements. And I can see this with any safety plan. I think I could go into any school building and say one of the great vulnerabilities from a public safety standpoint is lack of radio coverage within the building. Whether we're in here dealing with a fight or a violent subject, active shooter, medical situation, fire. Chief Ziesnas can probably attest to this. Once we get inside the walls of your building, we have virtually zero communication with our dispatch.
I want to say when he said, "Can you hear me now?" the worst answer is no. That's not the worst answer. The worst answer is no answer at all.
Right.
And that's what we get here. 4 feet inside the back door of the high school to turn the panel off. We have no contact with the guy that went inside.
So at any rate,
driveway.
thank you. Yes. So at any rate, we definitely are in need of an upgraded system. This system that we're looking at will fill that gap, not only here, but in all of our communities. But the direct benefit really to the school district and the community itself is extremely enhanced communication capabilities with your first responders responding to your school or to your community. It really is going to benefit not just us, but everybody.
And the other thing that we talked about when we met with Lindsay was the opportunity to look at your current radio system that you use for your purposes and see if it made sense and there'd be merit to taking the antenna that's on top of the press box now and the equipment and moving it over to the new tower, putting it up at a taller height. We haven't completed that engineering analysis yet to see if how much benefit that would bring, but it's certainly something we'd be open to if it looked like that would also help you in your system. But the bigger benefit is when you have a site this close, you'd have darn good penetration in all the buildings on the campus. So, and I think that's the last slide.
Please. When we talk to our partners with folks like MCP, the consultants, or we talk to Raycom and the other vendors, one of the things that they really can't believe is how well we get along and how well we cooperate here in Story County. This project is being funded by Iowa State, by the City of Ames, and by Story County. Those three groups are funding the majority of the $6 million infrastructure portion of this project. But when we got together and started looking at what we were going to do for the project, we knew that we had to include all of the responders in Story County to bring everybody into this. We could not leave anybody behind. So that's been a real focus of ours from the beginning. And when as we took this up each step of the ladder to get it approved and ultimately to get Storycom developed, everybody has agreed with us and everybody has seen how important that is. So when we talk to people across the country, they can't believe that we are able to do that and the cooperation we get countywide from that. We're kind of unique from that perspective. We've got a municipality, a county, and a university or state entity all working together to meet and try and improve everybody's needs. So I think that's something worth noting.
A question that I had, so you'd mentioned this is a piece of a puzzle, right? And so obviously you chose that spot for a reason. Were there other areas that you selected in our area? Other locations within our area that you selected, or was that just prime real estate?
We looked at a lot of different towers. Actually, when our engineer was modeling this county, I think he ran close to 100 different tower locations throughout the county to get that coverage, and it was a matter of...
And this was the place?
And this was one of them that worked in with the other sites that to give the best bang for the buck, in essence.
I appreciate that.
I lived in one of the towers. I'm assuming this is a freestanding tower by Wallace Hall, not on top of it.
No, it's actually, the antennas are on top of the
So
building.
when I went to school in 1985, they said they're going to tear those buildings down. And so when you're saying about the long-term viability of that, I think you might have a plan B just in case.
One of the questions that Senior Vice President Kane asked, and she assured, and the lease is for 15 years. That's one of the things we definitely checked with.
We want to blow up the other two.
Well, and I watched the other two blow up too, so I was like thinking, well, maybe it's a freestanding.
Right now, it's on the building.
Oh, okay, all right.
But by taking advantage of that, we didn't have to build a tower. We just put a shelter by the building, and that does help us save
Okay.
significant cost.
Then we can start saving our money for getting something in that location if they're all strategically placed. That was my only question I get the saving the money part, but just make sure.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Something we asked early on.
Oh, sure, I'm sure it wasn't news to you.
So the length of the lease, did you say you're targeting a 15-year?
15 years, that's correct.
Well, with
So Storycom-
extensions if possible.
Right.
Yeah, the 2080 agreement to form Storycom was a 15-year commitment from all the agencies that joined the 2080. So we know that we're going to run the system for at least 15 years. We certainly anticipate running it for a lot longer than that. We know that, as technology changes and improves, and radio systems in general could be drastically different than what they are today. But we know that we wanted to at least make that commitment to all come together for 15 years.
And in a lease that
Sure.
was 15 years where you're doing some substantial modification, I mean, would that be if the lease is not renewed, restored, or, I mean, I know that that's probably more detail, but I think, for the district, especially on that spot, which I'd like to hear from Lindsay or Mike or Tim, just on that footprint, but, that's a potentially large usable space, so.
We put in the last contract that they'd have to be responsible for demolition
Okay.
at the end of the useful time of the period. So that was one way that we took the concern for the district of if it ever quits being used, it would be on this group to demo it and put it back to how it was. And so we just include that in the contract, I suppose.
And kind of to follow up with Tyler's question, one of the things that we walked around that day and we looked at different spots, and the one that you used in your example that hugs that gravel road and hugs basically the border between our neighbor and ours, and Tim or Mike hop in here. We want to. That's an area quite a ways up there. Now we want to make sure that we're all in agreement with that, but that's quite a ways up there. That I don't know that if we're going to be using that. Now, if you started to move down more towards the entrance into the baseball, softball area, we will use that. And we are using that now for soccer and different things. Mike or Tim, do you guys have any comments about where you see the placement on that?
From my perspective, Mr. Beecher asked, I think at that time maybe he had a couple different locations, and that was my preference of the three that I saw. So from my perspective, we don't use that, it's too far away from the building, and we never have, and so I don't anticipate it being an issue for the middle school.
Tim, you want to have any way in there?
Yeah, it's interesting. I just met with our middle school cross-country coach today about plotting out a place for our kids to run on campus, which included going up in there, but we can go around it, we'll be fine.
I'd just like to say, to the concern of at the end of the 15 years, what if we don't renew? Your community is our community. We all live in these communities. We're first responders here. So we have just as much stake as keeping the community look clean. We don't want an eyesore either. We wouldn't want to leave a tower or a building or something behind to get dilapidated and just look bad. So we definitely have a stake in the aesthetics and how it operates and looks. And definitely we have a responsibility how it's maintained and ended if it ever comes to that point. So.
And that's not an unusual part of the lease like this.
Has there been any studies with regard to, so getting the idea that, hey, the communication has to work, but when we have communications that can, pass through brick walls and things like that, is there any health concerns associated with locating the tower so close to a school? Is there any studies on the impact of, when we talk about microwave dishes and that kind of thing? I want to make sure that there aren't any health issues associated with being that close to it.
I don't have a PhD in engineering, but I've sat through explanations of that from a PhD in engineering, and they said basically you're at more risk using your microwave at home than you are for something like this. So if there is a risk, it's very, very low.
Okay, could we?
And no different than all the cell.
Could you get a statement on that to us so that we could have that, from whoever did the study or who announced it? Yeah, I just want to make sure.
I can see what I can research on that, but
Yeah.
it's really no different than cell towers that are sprinkled all over the country. It's no more power than that.
Yeah, and I would say the subscriber unit, the handheld device the kids are using every day, probably transmits more power than they're going to receive.
Absolutely, and if we just have something that's the case, that's
Not
all
that they have them all the time.
You're just thinking of a communication, should we go forward that says, hey, and this is, we checked into the safety.
Absolutely, because there's people that don't want their kids having a phone in their hand all the time.
You tell them that.
Yeah. I just want to have our bases covered. We ask the question and we have some documentation of the answer.
Sure.
I'd be
Tom?
curious to see too, just on the fencing and the security, once you get that, I don't need it today, we got time on that, but a 250-foot tower on school property just gets me a little nervous sometimes with kids, so, other than that.
And I do have, I didn't bring a set for everybody, but I have two sets of 11 by 17 of the preliminary site plans and a couple 8.5 by 11s, and then a Google Earth view that kind of gives you an above view and then a side view of what this might look
Yeah,
like. So
that's
I can leave that with the group here and you guys can distribute them if you'd
We have
like.
insurance people here. I mean, do you guys handle the insurance on this tower? Is that how that works, or how does that work?
Storytown will have insurance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we're going through a process right now to acquire insurance for Storycom with the understanding of what all of the 5 sites are going to look like, the temporary sites, as well as the permanent sites. So we'll carry insurance for all the hardware, all the sites that we have.
One of the things that we talked about, Tom, was in a school district, things don't move real fast. So if, we look at doing something like this, we would have to set up a public hearing. We have to set that we will have a date for a public hearing, then the next month have a public hearing. So this isn't something that just happens like that. And again, I wanted the board to just understand what's happening. I think that you said that you kind of want to see if, if the board says, hey, there's no way that we want to do anything like this. You want to know so you can go to another, plot of land.
Correct, yeah. So it's really just, instead of just coming to you with a proposal and kind of an end product and then get surprised by, we don't want that here, there's no way this is going to happen. This is kind of answer any questions that you have, give you an overview of the project, make sure that we're kind of on solid footing and proceeding forward from the beginning rather than halfway through the process.
Love the collaboration. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
No question, but just, I think I would certainly be supportive. I would want to make sure that our administrative staff, including the sports part, make sure that we don't box ourselves out of something that we want to be doing down the road. And I'm not saying that from the standpoint of not doing it, it's just the specific location.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
we thought that location would be the least disruptive to your ability to use that parcel.
So I think that what I'm hearing from you, I think that we're going to maybe proceed with some discussions and maybe see what because like I said, legally, we have to go through some hoops to jump through on this also.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you very much.
Would you like me to leave these with you guys?
Sure.
That would be great.
And keep in mind, these are drafts, but it gives you a good idea what's going on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Lindsay, we're going on to the next piece. I don't believe there's anybody else here for public. I think we were going to leave that, so we were going to maybe switch the number 1 and number 2, so Cassie.
Yeah.
And,
She's still there?
I was just gonna switch number 2 and number 1, so Cassie can do her piece and then
Okay.
head out. That's all right? Okay.
I don't know if the board has had a chance to meet Cassie, have they?
Introduce her.
That was more of the reason I wanted to stop by, and I'm Cassie Wendt. I just started over here. I got trained by Vicki for a few months and been on my own for I don't even know how long anymore. So I just kind of wanted to give you an update on our online registration. I have to say I'm just very impressed by the whole thing. Of course, there was a few little hiccups, but I think with anything new, there always is. But I just want to say that I am so impressed that within 2.5 weeks, we have over 83% of our students have been registered. So right now, as of 5:30, we are only short of 215 students. So, and then we have about 160 new students that have registered. That's including like kindergartners and preschoolers as well. But it's quite impressive. We've had 13 new 6th graders this year, which I know we get them from St. Cecilia, but I think we only had 5 on our list when I first started here. So other than that, I just wanted to kind of share that, and I was pretty impressed, and I just wanted to kind of put some names with faces, and yeah, awesome. So.
Did you have a lot of response to the in-house computer along the registration?
Oh,
Did you have people
actually,
come in?
I had somebody tonight for almost an hour and 15 minutes, so it's been actually very helpful. Not as many people have used it as I have seen in a previous district where I worked, but it has been very helpful. So, and it's fun to get to know, because I'm not in the school setting, so I don't get to make that connection. So it's been fun to do that here. Good. So. All right.
Cool. Thanks. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Thank you, Cassie. Okay, sorry, you jumped out of order. Do you want to, you go on back up to?
Yeah, while we're introducing people, Vic, do you want to go ahead and introduce a new addition that we have at the high school?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to, I know a few of you met her just a little bit ago at the tour, but this is Cindy Bassett. She has joined the team this year, has been working with us for a couple weeks now, and was able to go to PLC conference and out to Ohio with our admin team. And super excited to have her with the team. We've had plenty of staff come in to introduce themselves and get to know her, and pretty excited to have her join us.
Thank you. It's been awesome to be here. It was nice to talk with all of you earlier this evening. It's just been such a welcoming district so far. And like Vic said, lots of teachers in to say hi, some good connections with people around, and so it's great to be here. I'm excited to get the school year going.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Just remember he's from Emmitsburg.
I specifically heard her say Spencer Okaboji, so she was hedging her deal.
I'm not going to give her my maiden name because we have family up there too. I'm not sure. I'm not some shady business. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, so did you want to go up to the floor? That one? We're a little behind. Sorry, that was a pretty important presentation, but.
Yeah. Do you want to go to district priorities
Yep.
and goals? Okay. One of the things that we talked about, and there's been a lot of work from everyone that's in this room, but and I'll pass these down to you. This is basically the draft, and I think, I don't know, Carrie, how many times have we bounced it back and forth between us and the administrative team?
Quite a few times.
So it's been gone through. This is what we're going to have out. These will be out in a poster form. You can take a look at those for the first day. The thing that I wanted to talk about, and I wanted the administrative team to join in here, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity that we had to go to Columbus, Ohio, and the training that we were able to get with Ed Leader 21. I don't know how I can explain how valuable that was, because these people that are over to my left here, we were able to be there for 2.5, 3 days of just working on that portrait of a graduate. It wasn't that someone called and said, oh, we need the principal from such and such a building to go handle this. We were together and we had a chance to talk about a lot of different things. I think that what it did was it allowed us to talk about things and to see where we are as a team, that we were on the same page. You know, we had a time where we were talking about what does this mean to you when we talk about Portrait of a Graduate. I think each of us put down what our thoughts were for that. And, you know, no one knew before what was going to happen, and they were all very, very close. Another thing that we talked about is when we roll this out, how should we roll it out so we do it in the correct way? And we talked about a district leadership team and who should be on that. And I think that there's going to be some information that will be shared when we come back on the 20th with our staff about we're looking for some people that want to be a part of that district leadership team. And it doesn't work to just have, let's say, these people here having that. We need to have the input from other people too. I'll open it up to this group, but I think that the thing that I got from the trip that we took and the conference that we attended was we are on target for what we want for a Portrait of a Graduate. I think that we have the things that we're moving towards. I think it's solidified for a team where we're at and how we need to get there. The biggest thing I think is that we want to make sure that as we're doing these things, we're talking to people and explaining what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it. Would anyone like to jump in and add anything more to that?
The one thing that I would add is being a part of this Leadership Academy has given us the opportunity. I mean, we have someone that is assigned to our team that we are in contact with for the next 9 months as we look at what our you say problem of practice, or what is that goal that we really want to, you know, that we want to get to. And it was really how do we roll this out so that we have community buy-in, staff buy-in, student buy-in, and so that it doesn't seem undaunting and feel like it's just, you know, oh my gosh, now I have another plate I'm spinning, how am I going to do Portrait of a Graduate, when really the beginning is, what is our baseline? What are we doing right now? Because you have to know what you're doing right now to then know where you're going to go from there. I mean, some people, it comes naturally. Some people are doing it and they really haven't thought about how it is. So those are those first things where we've got to get baseline data. Just like we ask our teachers to have data on the decisions they're making on the classroom, we have to have not just that hunch, but we've got to have that actual evidence of where we are that tells our story. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be collecting that evidence from teachers, but it can't, just like Lindsay said, it can't just be us running, you know, rolling this, because then you're doing this to me. I'm going to use the analogy of teacher leadership. I mean, that has been a whole grassroots piece, and this also has to be that we've all been in the classroom, but we're all out at different times, and once you're out of the classroom, that thought is, you don't really remember what this is about. So it has to be, we've got to wrap our district around that. And I think when from the discussions that we've all had that we've had together as an administrative team and a board, that community piece of where are we as a community? How are we inviting, where are we inviting in our patrons, our community members? Once again, if teachers are like, oh my gosh, I have to do this. Well, no, because it's already happening places. So you've got to see, where is it happening? Where's your bright spots? Where are these things really happening well? And then how do we build upon that so that it doesn't seem like this daunting task for our teachers? Because we've got these things happening already. And then we need to build upon it from there. That was some of my takeaways. So.
Anyone else?
I think Carrie summed it up pretty well. I don't know that I necessarily have anything to add other than, sometimes you have to go slower to go faster kind of thing, and make sure you get everything in line, and it's kind of that duck on the pond. Like you may not see a lot of action, but underneath the water, and so I think it's just a matter of getting everything set so that we can, when we do this, we can do it right, and hopefully just it becomes a long-term way of how teaching and learning looks in the district. So it's not just a new initiative, it is how we operate, so.
One thing I'd like to add to that is thank you for allowing us to be part of this academy. This is giving us those where we can't let the everyday running of the business stop us from doing this work. I mean, we have deadlines that we're setting for ourselves, and I mean, what we have to have next before we do the next step. So just having that time with people that are like-minded districts that are in some of the similar places that we are, to be able to have that time to collaborate with like people across the country. I mean, one of the things that we heard is right now, across the country, 5% of the districts are at about the stage we are with Portrait of a Graduate. Part of Ed Leader, the organization that we're part of, their goal is they want to have 20 to 25% of districts across the country where they can say that this is the right work. That how are we getting kids ready for that next step? So when you think about that, we're on the cusp of what that work should be. And the thing is, I mean, we heard a lot of people say, you know, when you have the numbers that we have, the scores that we have, it's hard to move that pendulum with your staff, because it's like, well, goodness, we're doing good things. Look at what we're doing, but we've got to find the evidence for these next pieces. So thank you for allowing us to dig into this and giving us the time and the resources to allow us to do this work.
Did our work over the last 12 months help you guys when you were at the training, that, hey, you feel like the board, you know, that you had the direction you needed
Yes.
to feel comfortable of, hey, what that road might look like the next 3 to 5 years?
If anything, when we rolled out what our plan looked like for this year, people were like, you've got to be kidding me. You better slow that down, because you might not get, that looks lofty to us. So
That's good, we're shooting high.
yeah, and that's what we said, because we said, oh my gosh, we have these priorities, but it's like, you know what, okay, yeah, we have action steps, but the action steps we're going to come back to every year. It's not changing our priorities. So, but it was, I think it was good work.
What would you say you need from us in terms of support for that, or the next phase? I know you have to kind of slowly move through, but anything that you can think of that you're looking to us for?
Right now, I think I think one of the things that, okay, how are we going to report this out? How do you want us to report out to you? Is, I think, as we looked at, we like, okay, every month, do you want to update of where we're at? I don't know. I think that's where I shouldn't say we. I'm going to say I'm a little unsure how you want that to look.
Because before when we did this, we turned something to red, and then maybe that administrator talked about that. And this isn't the type of thing that you can do that with. So we talked about, when we have our administrative meetings, when it gets closer to the board meeting time, if we would, be talking about maybe some areas that we are working through these district priorities, and just kind of update you so that you're continually updated on where that's coming from. The thing that I got to tell you is that we were together, like I said, for 2.5, 3 days working on this. And the thing that when we started to leave, everyone's comments were, oh, I hate to have us leave because we have the momentum going now. If you've been to a conference like that, and I think that's our key, that we don't lose that momentum and we keep it going.
And that's the value of you've got all going at once. That's fantastic.
Oh, I think that we could never have replicated the time that we had. And plus the way that this academy is set up is you've got learning, and then you've got, okay, now you got your time, you got to dig into this work as a team. And there was nothing that was pulling anybody away. So and part of it too was learning about each other in what are our leadership styles, and how are we the same, and how are we different, and maybe that's, if I am all about communication, I have to talk through my thinking, whereas if somebody else, oh no, I'm a boom, 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 then, okay, how are we managing that? So that was really the beginning of it. it gave us perspective on that, and those are the kinds of things that here, day to day, we do not have time to do. So.
Did they do that strength-based leadership? Did you do that Gallup poll?
They
alluded to it?
used a different one.
Did
they?
Similar.
Same concept.
What was the name of it, Carrie?
It's called predictive index.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
That works.
this is who I am right here. But no, it was good. So, thank you.
Yeah, we have.
I did have like a little panic attack because I was talking to Gail the day we were coming back and there was plane troubles or something and I thought, that's every single one. You normally both go together like this? Who's left? You're like, I did have a small, but you know.
You're in
Read
charge.
through it. Just read through it. I'm so glad you got to go.
No,
Excellent.
I'm excited for the next step.
I just want to compliment the team on this is
Yes.
August and this is done, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really great
Agreed.
work. My suggestions on that, Carrie, you're asking, well, how does that get updated? In 3 months, you're going to have 2 new board members. And one suggestion I might throw out to the board is when you do that, maybe have a work session some point after that. I mean, let them get at least on the ground, but this would be a great work session, just a mid-year review of kind of where you're at in order to think about, okay, now at the end of the year, what does this look like as far as the deliverables? But I don't think I'd get caught up in a month to month would be my suggestion.
No, I think we just kind of say, here's our ideas, and then present that to the board at that time. And
If you wanted to have an example of, and some examples of how we're progressing here at a board meeting, given board meeting, great, but to me, the time that we took to get to where you've gotten now, to me, deserves a work session kind of review, which I think might be good once you get a new board in here.
Agreed. It's just it's a lot.
It is.
And it's good to be able to talk through it and share some of that background, so.
Just an FYI, on the poster, on our original work, we've got, for action steps, we've got multiple years on there. For that, we just did the 1 year.
the one you emailed out, I thought was fantastic.
It was nice. The red.
Yeah, didn't that look good?
I thought, man,
that looked really good.
Really good. I was really impressed.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, any other questions on that?
I don't believe so. Nope.
Let's see, can you pull up the staff pre-school planning? I'm not going to go through this other than to just say, there's the schedule. I think Kim is on the docket
For the 20th.
for the 20th there, for the welcome. That's what's going to happen, and there's a lot of planning that took place to bring this along. Again, we have some great sponsors that are chipping in for breakfast, or there might be a lunch or something like that. But a lot of activities get going here, and we're going to be talking here a little bit. Hopefully, all the buildings will be ready, and we'll be good to go. Do you have any questions on that? I don't. Okay.
Okay. Announcements and celebrations.
Anyone have anything that they would like to bring up, announcement or celebration?
We'll have students in the new Fine Arts Wing tomorrow, actually, so that's kind of exciting. Byron is going to kind of stage them in an area to have them all walk in at one time so they can see that all on their face when they all walk in. It's going to be just an outstanding moment to see this space that they're going to take such pride in and just spend a lot of time down there over the next few years. So pretty excited about that.
My celebration is also centered around the new construction. As you guys saw, it's getting close. It's exciting to see it get to that point. And I think publicly, I just would like to thank Mike Gibson and Bill Hansen and Dick Wright, that's his dad, Dan Wright, for their hard work this summer. They have been amazing, having to work around some of the construction issues and that kind of stuff. And they got us real close. We're almost to the finish line, and it's just exciting to see it all come together. So anyway, that was mine.
I would agree. Our custodial staff's been amazing. Not only we have the construction stuff, but then I have my own list of things for them to update and do, and they've just been plugging along and taking it in stride, and we'll be ready to rock next Friday.
Yeah, I think in addition, I just
Obviously we went with a different system and how we run the construction project, and Darren is my construction, does Amy's, and that's been awesome, having a go-to person that's right there and checks in with you all the time, and so I really have liked that system.
I would second that. It's been great.
The story has been, and I'm not saying this because Adam's here, the
Yeah.
story has been fantastic.
He gets all the glory, all by himself. The one man show.
Yeah, tell them that was nothing.
So it was a great
What you talking
choice
about?
on your end. This has been the best.
Construction management's a good way to go.
Yeah.
Truly,
It's been amazing.
truly.
I keep waiting for the email that goes out to the parents thing. It says, everybody on deck, you need to dust and all that.
Oh,
Like, I know you're using the
Saves
students,
lives.
which is great, but I remember when we moved to
Deb,
intermediate.
yeah.
We had,
You helped unload the semi and we dusted
yeah,
off
we
everything.
have a parents, the parents' site.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid, I hope. I can't lie, that is amazingly, it's gonna be cool, but like, there's a lot of stuff to move, so. All hands on deck, right?
Yep, for sure.
Anyone else? Okay.
I have one celebration. I was talking to a young lady this weekend, and someone asked her, "Are you ready to go back to school?" And she goes, "I can't wait." And so I was like, "Wow!" And that was said with passion. And she rattled off like 4 or 5 things she's in band, and how excited she is to see the new band room and do all that was associated with that. And I'm like, boy, you couldn't put engagement in capital letters and cover this young lady's excitement about coming back to Gilbert High School. So that was really neat to see.
I got something too I want to read real quick, just because, and some of you probably saw this, it was on Facebook. It was posted by a dad of a daughter on the softball team. I'm going to leave off the names, but I'm sure you guys can all figure it out. But it says, as a parent, you want the best for your children. You want them to experience the excitement of wins, but also the teachable moments of losses. You want them to go through life with people who can direct them and teach them those tough times, but also can dance and celebrate the good times. Her senior season ended on Saturday night, and boy, has there been a lot of tears. But those tears are not because it's over, it's because of what she experienced and learned this season from this person. I'm speaking of Stacy Sneezik. You can't ask for a better person to guide our daughters. You are much more than a coach to these girls, and this dad appreciates it more than you'll ever know. As she grows older, she'll never forget the wins and losses, but she'll remember the impact that you've had in all of her life. Thanks for everything, Stacy. It's been more than a dad could ask for. I thought that was pretty cool. I know some of you guys read that, I know. When I read it as a dad, you're like, man, that is neat. So Tim, yeah. I thought it was cool.
Tremendous summer, both baseball and softball, and our coaches doing a really good job.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
No problem. Sorry, I tried to read quick.
No,
Yeah,
that's
good.
perfect. Hey, share all the good news you want. We're on to the board reports here. So first one is school board election dates. I think Gail included this in there. Key dates for people to remember.
I have reached out to Jen Schnormeyer, giving her some of the key dates and trying to get a common message. I told her that that we would want it on the website and where we wanted some of these key dates to be published. I have not heard back from her, but as soon as I hear back from her on, we'll get like a common message, a common visual of some kind, and start blasting it out there to get these key dates out there.
Perfect.
And to hopefully we have more than 3, and hopefully people, we have a choice of and multiple people coming to take out papers. So.
Yeah, it'd be nice if we had 2 candidates for every opening.
Yeah.
That would be, I think, at least what we should shoot for.
So Gail, Jen just does social media, not website, but I'm happy to put whatever you need on the website.
I gave her a packet of items from ISB that had announcements, it has news releases, it has all sorts of things, and she's going to review it and get back to me.
Okay.
So I was hoping we just come up with like a marketing plan or a marketing something that we could say, this is what we're going to do.
A common feel.
Common theme is what I was hoping. So,
When we met President, Vice President, that's kind of the things that you were asking for, I think. Something to get out to the public so they know what's happening, the dates, and whether it be social media, website, Amy, that area. Jen Stormeyer, I mean, we're going to get it out so people know.
we have, we have posters. ISB sends out a packet of information, so we're getting that out.
Everybody has a chance to get down to the state fair and do their little stuff scotch there. Okay. And the next one was the annual convention.
I sent out
there's all sorts of more detailed information. And, you know, I would say I'm going to sign everybody up. If you can't, just let me know, and then I won't bother signing somebody up. But otherwise, I'll proceed with signing everybody up for the convention and, you know, the pre and all the special meetings.
And you have the president's deal on Friday,
Yeah.
really good. So
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for his staff.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Thank you for doing that, Gail. Okay, well, we're just a little bit off track on our agenda here.
You
but-
can pick it up, I'm sure.
Yeah, so old business, looks like we have some second readings here to go through.
Yeah, really, I'll let you look through there's only two that I want to bring to your attention. 505.5 graduation requirements. I don't know if you can scroll down to that one. I talked to Vic a little bit about that. There was just we left a change in there. I know that you said, there it is. You got to get that bigger. My eyes aren't very good. All right. We had the college and career planning. We needed to take that off of there. Is that right, Vic?
Yes, that was something that's done in an informal basis, not issued for credit.
And then the other one that we put in there was that, well, I'm not going to read it to you, that beginning in that class of 2024, and it's going to be with special ed, graduation requirements and special ed. So any comments on that? Okay, let's go on to the next one. This one was the grading system. I talked to, I think these guys were at a PLC conference, and they came back and they were all fired up about this, and they said, let's look at this policy. And we talked about it as our policy committee, so it's not like it's just out there just floating. One of the things that we talked about was that what you see in yellow, I think, is what we were going to just take out of there. And as you scroll down, you'll be able to see, and then what it is for the high school. Hold on just a second, please. Then when I talked to Mike, one of the things that we're talking about, we talked a little bit about this last time, and I don't want to, I'm glad Mike's here, so we were talking about this. He can add his input to that. When we talk about that middle school policy, we're talking about that standards-based grading, and I think that the process is that, from what I've gathered from him, that he is going to have meetings with the public to talk about that and to see where we're going with that. We don't want to put something in. We talk back and forth about this will happen at the end of this date. We want to ask for the public's input before we make the decision. Does that make sense? I hope that's making sense what I'm saying. So what we're doing is we're scrapping anything that you see there. Probably not a professional word to use, but we're taking out any of the things that we see there in the yellow. And then I talked to Vic about the PE requirement, and I don't know if that was one that was in there for a while, but we didn't feel that one needed to be in there. So there's basically two policies, and I'll let either middle school or high school principals add into this. But basically, that's what you're using for your grading scale. It isn't that. I know, Deb, we talked about it being on the policy committee. It's not that, especially for the middle school, those numbers and trying to make those things work. Guys, anything to add to that?
Well, so just what Vic and I noticed was that what is written as policy does not reflect current practice and hasn't for, I mean, we moved to standards-based grading when the new high school opened, and this became an intermediate, so 5 or 6 years. For us, I guess I just want to speak about the grading scale that we had used and why. So when we went to standards-based grading, Mr. Billings, who was the principal prior to me, still wanted to do a letter grade. There had been some schools that shifted to that, middle schools, and not having a letter grade was a hot button issue for parents. And so we came up with a hybrid system to still do standards-based grading, but then assign a letter grade to it. However, because the staff decided to grade out of 3, if we graded out of 4, it would have been slick. It's just a reverse GPA conversion. But since we went out of 3, if a kid gets 2 out of 3, on a traditional grading scale, that's a D. Well, we felt like that's really developing, and so it's not really a D, and so we needed to adjust the weighting to make it reflect what we felt like it needed to be. And so you had seen a copy. I can't read that. I can't tell if that is what we currently do or if that's the old one. I have my glasses on, I apologize. But I think maybe Deb at least had seen the adjusted one we have been running, and it looks really wonky. I don't know a better way of describing it.
That's a different word than I used, but it was very similar. The
staff and I actually,
yeah.
The staff and I actually visited last fall about possibly going away from letter grades. The staff is wanting to do that. They feel like it doesn't reflect really a student's performance. My answer to them was, we had talked about maybe shifting from Power School to a different student management system called Infinite Campus. The standards-based grading feature of that is a little stronger, it's a little more robust than Power School is. And so to me, the answer was, well, let's wait and see how that shakes out, because then we can just make that switch altogether. So we'd have some parent meetings, some conversations, and then make that move. Talking with Mr. Beecher, it sounds like the board is maybe ready to move that way a little sooner, and so we'll have some parent meetings this fall, and we'll start those conversations. So we're happy to do it. Like I said, the staff would rather not give grades, but I want to make sure we give parents a chance to hear rationale and offer feedback, and if they feel pretty strongly that they still want letter grades, then I guess ultimately it's what you folks decide. So.
Does that make sense what he's saying, so we're all on the same page?
Yeah, it's really just how we do that messaging, because
Yeah.
before I joined the board, I wouldn't have known the difference. I would think, well, we're just trying to dumb it down and give everybody a medal, And so I think, that message of, hey, this is a better way of doing it, and describing that and getting that message out to the parents, I think it's very compelling once you hear the story. But if they don't hear that story, then we're going to get a lot of pullback.
I think Mike will do a good job of meeting with those parents and getting that feedback. So in this district, if people know what you're doing and why you're doing it, you usually have pretty good success. So,
Okay. So okay to leave this, or we strike? We're talking about striking this.
Yes, that would
grade
be
adjustment out, and then wait to hear the feedback, I suppose, and we'll kind of deal with it. But I think I heard
that
board
reflects
last
current
week or last
practice.
month say that.
It just doesn't include the grading scale. But like I said, that could be something that
Certainly
conceivably
not.
go away as soon as next year.
Okay.
So.
and sometimes when you go standard-based grading, and Vic can probably attest to that, when you get into high school, it gets even more controversial, or can be controversial. I think that you said that some of the people or some of the schools that when you were at the PLC, there's more and more schools that are doing that. So I don't know if that's something that we're going to look at down the road or not, and that's not to be decided here tonight, but something that definitely that we were doing in our middle school. So would ask for approval, this is a second reading, would ask for approval even for these portions that if you want to, on these two, if you want to go to a third reading, we can. It's whatever the board would choose to do.
So we're gonna strike this language, but we're gonna keep doing it the same way we're doing it with regard to the conversion of the standards based to letter grade.
Well, I guess I would prefer that, just because I haven't had a chance to.
Okay, I just want to make sure the board was clear that even though we're striking the language, we're keeping with it as far as this 12 months.
Yes.
Yeah. I think we're hoping that we're forward thinking with this.
Yes.
And that
Yes,
we
because the
all
grade
fit.
scale up there, it doesn't reflect what we've done for 5 or 6 years.
Okay.
Might as well get rid of it.
Yeah.
We
So
were
then
trying to
that's
figure it out.
good. We don't want the old stuff in there.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anyone?
So moved.
Second.
Nope.
Nope, go ahead.
Second.
Should we get that, Gail?
I got Andrew's second.
Okay, so those are approved. Second reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotta
Okay,
vote. Gotta vote.
got a vote.
Yay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's been an hour and 15 minutes, sorry. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, all those opposed? Okay, it's passed.
Do we get to go to construction now?
Sorry, on to that, yes, new business
Oh, let's hold it
construction.
off for a little while.
You've got enough praise tonight.
Come back later.
You just sit back and enjoy it.
Yeah. So in the packet, you got a narrative again this month. Word narrative that describes and identifies the progress at all the locations. Also the budget summary with changes updated to date. The contingency is still tracking along the lines of what we would want through the project, so that is still good. If there are any questions on the budget summary or the progress to date, you can sure ask them now. This budget summary does include the 4 changes that are on the board tonight for approval.
Assumed approval.
So
Yeah.
that has already been included.
So we are at 48% with, if we were to approve those four
Correct.
today.
Yep.
And that's with an estimate of 50.5% completion.
Correct. Yep.
So is that, those have come closer. but we're also farther along such that there's likely less hidden things.
Correct, so
behind or-
Art and I think Lindsay, when we met individually this last week to go through some of the changes that were upcoming, we talked about the stage of the project and the renovation areas and how those renovation areas tend to bring changes to the surface, things that are behind walls, above ceilings, just like we talked about in the elementary building today. So now that those spaces are being finished and we're getting ready to move in, yes, the risk and ability for those to be identified at this point are all but gone. There is one more at the elementary school that you haven't seen yet. We're waiting for some updated price. Somebody had included something that was supposed to be included in the base bid and it changed, so I need to do an update on that. Otherwise, other than that one, I don't know that there are a lot of changes that are on the board right now for any of the renovations.
At this point, it won't be unknown, it'll be more aesthetics.
Correct, yep. Yep. Functionality once by the district or by teachers or something like that would come to it.
Adam, I know you said in the elementary school intermediate, as we were walking through, at the beginning when we started this project, we kind of wondered if we would have some changes due to the fire. Some of that you were talking about, we were kind of wondering if we could maybe bypass that or push those down, and it came back and we're doing them.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yep. Are you talking about, you said fire?
Did I say fire?
You did.
That's what I was talking about.
Are you talking about the fire alarms
Elementary
that
school fire alarms, yeah.
that aren't part of this project? Art can probably talk to that more.
Sorry.
Yep, I spoke with Lindsay and Gail at length this afternoon regarding those. Sounds like the state inspector came through in late July and identified the big ticket items it's the fire panel in both the intermediate and the elementary school, as well as a number of smoke heads and other features. Actually, way back in master planning, we had identified those as high needs, especially at the elementary school. But then when it came down to what projects are above the cut line and which ones are below the cut line, those ones they fell below. But the understanding was, the fire marshal might come back and say we need to do these in the future, so be prepared. We thought we might get a couple of years more out of it, but after 1 year from that inspection, they did request that change. So it will increase the safety of your building. Actually, the price that has been quoted to you by, what's the entity here? General Fire and Safety Equipment Co. Is significantly better than what some of our previous estimates were when we were in master planning. I think we thought some of this would be more in the six-figure dollar ranges, $140,000 plus per building. So I would say that the pricing looks really favorable, and maybe the scope of what they're proposing is much less than what original master plans called for, but this reflects what the state is requesting. So I think it's a worthwhile change. Obviously increases the safety of your buildings. And, yeah.
Gail has it up on the screen here if you want to take a look at it, where those figures were coming up. And again, it talks about the things that we need to add to that. When I had emailed the inspector, he said that this is something, just as Art had said, this is something that we're going to have to bring up to code. They do give us some time frame on this, but we thought that this was part of it, and we would include that in there.
Okay. So we have the 4 change requests that were listed that you are bringing for approval, correct?
Do you have any others, Adam, that you're wanting to?
So the ones that are listed under item number 1, CR05R, some miscellaneous steel changes. 8R is State Fire Marshal review, so some other, I'll say, design comments. The Fire Marshal requested some additional fire safety walls be put in for additions at the middle school. and also change some ratings of doors at other buildings. 12, clarification of some brick demolition. Not necessarily clearly shown on the drawings how far back we had to take it. Also, probably a little misinterpretation by the bidding contractor as well. For that, we have to tie the air barrier in, so they have to take an extra layer of block out in those areas. And then the 12, that was the brick demolition. And then 62R would be ceiling tile replacement at the elementary building in the corridors in the media center.
So are we okay to look at those all as a group, or do you want to split those out? Guys? Is there a preference?
I don't need
I
to
don't
see
think
a
it's a
donation
group.
choice.
Adam, I do have the 16R if you wanted to talk about it at all.
We can, yeah.
Or,
we can,
because we'll bring it back at a later date,
Yeah.
but if you wanted to,
We can.
we can, but that's up to you. If
Do you want to take action on those first?
Yeah. The 4 that we have. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Do you like how I asked that time?
That was good.
All those opposed? Okay. Approve those changes. 16R, is that what you, did you want to bring
Yeah,
that
I
up?
have-
You said?
Yeah, we have, do you have a preference of which one? I have
I would put the other one up
the
first.
other one first. Okay.
And I'll let Vic start probably on this. So 16R is the kitchen lab build out. You guys are aware of some of the background information about the space, and I'll let Vic go through a little bit more. Also include some curriculum talk.
Sure, sure. And I've, included some documents to Adam. I think you guys have seen some of those documents.
Yeah.
The plan for curriculum and things. But originally, this space was designed just to be kind of a wide open space. And as time progressed, we kind of looked at a way to specify it a little more and get the most out of a learning lab versus just having a space and hoping good things would happen in there. And so we saw an opportunity to look toward building a food science lab that could be used by a variety of our CTE departments and also be used to do some cross-curricular work with other departments as well. And so we started looking at that and visited a few schools that have similar spaces to this, and they were really doing some really cool curricular things. And then with our proximity to Iowa State and their background in food science and ag, and having a number of community members that work in a variety of these types of fields, we saw an opportunity to try to work toward designing a space where we could do some food science work. The things that we're thinking about tie really well into our portrait of a graduate work, where we're bringing in experts and we're doing things, in a lab space that is designed to be very inviting and very
Well, and very conducive to learning.
correct.
Like what you'd be doing in the real world.
Yeah.
And then we would save the time that our students would have to leave campus to do those things.
Now, a couple things to think about, and the original budget that I was given to work with for FF&E was $155,000. And through working with a partnership with Story Kenworthy, that helped us kind of organize our FF&E budgets and kind of pick out items and things and get organized. I spent right around $90,000 out of the $155,000. I felt like at that point, anything we're adding at that point was stuff that's just, more Cadillac on top of what we already had. And I felt like we picked out some really great items that reflect future learning and really will make inviting classroom spaces. On top of that, there's going to be another about $15,000, so that bumped me up to about $105,000 of FF&E spent, which left me roughly right around $50,000 to the good, I feel. Money that could be poured back into this type of change order and help to offset some of that cost. Now also, we were recently able to start developing some partnerships. Carrie and I, along with some staff members, met with some business people last spring to start looking at how we can maybe bring in community members and community partnerships. We were able to secure a $20,000 donation in a piece of equipment from Fairway, which is a pretty substantial piece of equipment for the cost of the project, with the goal of looking at trying to bring partnerships from the business world apprenticeships into this workspace and giving kids real-world applications of things that they're doing. So, and then we also received a pretty generous donation from the foundation at the Rock Hop of $20,000 toward equipment costs. So, you know, looking to really start knocking that number down as low as we possibly could to make it feel not quite so high. So, is there anything anyone would like to add, Art, to Carrie?
I mean, I think that we want to do everything we can to make this a usable workspace, the best possible thing it can be. I mean, we walked into that beautiful band room tonight or whatever, and this space is another space that can be used, you know, 9 to 10 months out of the year by lots of, not just a certain specific, I mean, lots of grades can do this. And so to make it work that the most optimal way it can, these are the things that would need to be done.
So help me understand, what is this? So I heard you say, you know, we have some money left over from FF&E. Fairway had donated some. I think I can say it right. Fairway donated some. We've got another donation. This is, help me understand what's
So this would be overall construction cost. So to build out everything above the floor slab and the infrastructure that was put in below the slab to be able to do this at a later date. Do you have the summary, the financial summary that gives this and then subtracts out the FF&E dollars?
I don't think so. I mean, I have the detail you sent with this,
So there was
version 1 and version 2.
So there was a cover sheet that I had included on this.
On this?
Yeah. And then Vic's definition of the space and the curriculum stuff.
When did you send that?
Last week.
Okay. So on your, I have the progress narrative. And that was that one sheet.
Yep.
And then change review narrative.
I thought when I sent them, it was all the 16 stuff together.
I didn't see any of this.
I didn't see that either.
In the packet. That's what I was like. So, but is this essentially, okay, so we initially said, let's go ahead and do some of the underground work to be prepared for this. And then that 104,000 is the above ground, but not the equipment. Is that right? Okay.
It actually,
Sorry, I'm clicking here. Is that right?
included in this price is that underground that you, the board, directed the contractor to go ahead and do. That was a change directive. It's do work. We don't know what the price is yet, but you know we'll negotiate that later. So this change here includes all the underground utilities as well as everything above the floor slab. So this is essentially all of the architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical components to get the district this kitchen. In addition to that cost, there's going to be roughly, is it $20,000 of equipment cost? Yeah. That's roughly a wash with the $20,000 donation from the Rock Hop. In addition to that, Vic was able to talk to Fairway and get $15,000 to $20,000 hood. So all in all, there's going to be roughly, we'll say $135,000 of added value to the construction. There's $20,000 donation from Rock Hop, $15,000 to $20,000 donation from the from Fairway, plus the overage, the balance from the FF&E, it probably results in something, and this is the document that Adam's searching for now. I think we said something in the order of 65 grand of added cost to the district for an extra, like I said, $135,000, $140,000 of value. So.
And I just didn't see it in the packet, so are you asking that we approve this
I'm wondering,
tonight, or what do we do?
we have it on here. We were sending emails back and forth last night for last week, and then I went on vacation, and I was told, Adam, I had some missing information, and then I had some questions about, because I had 2 forms, there was no signatures, so I wasn't sure where this was. So I just brought the information, didn't put it on the agenda because I didn't think it was ready for the agenda yet. So I brought it so we could talk about it, and then maybe later bring it up for official approval of some kind. But I wasn't sure if we were to that point.
So can I, so is 104, is that what that is?
Yes.
Is that all, is that out of the contingency budget?
Out of the 286,000 that's remaining, is that?
Yeah, so I just emailed it to you.
Okay.
So it's essentially with the reductions that Vic talked about, it brings the change down to $69,000. So it cuts about $30,000, $35,000 off of the price that you guys see.
So if we go.
And that would come out of the 286,000
Correct.
remaining contingent. Okay, sorry, Taylor.
No, that's all right. But I think following up on Mike, when you go back to the basic budget where we started, and we said we've got
286.
in contingency, the 104 would come off of that.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, 70,000 would come off of that.
70,000.
Yep.
There's that.
Because there are already dollars that are in
foundation would.
Yeah, and some of his other FF&E that he hasn't spent that's already in the budget. That would be.
It's in the budget, but it's.
It would be, so if you look at the FF&E line item, it would just.
It's unspent.
Even that out.
Yeah, it would cancel out of the FF&E line item and be used for something else, I guess.
So and that's at 40 on the FF&E or 50, what was that number on your budget on the FF&E?
60.
60?
I think he said
What
it was
did you say
60,000.
was the delta on your FF&E?
I think he thought it would be
Around
35,000
Yeah,
is
around
what we.
35.
It does need some more FF&E for pots, pans, utensils, a lot of loose items still, but.
We got those around our house.
And we also
All our
have,
kids are
we've
gone.
also had some conversations
Take
with
whatever you want.
random other partners that
Right, I
may
think
donate
done.
more and more things
Yeah,
as
right.
Right. I
as
know
things
that.
develop. I know we've spoken with several other businesses.
Yeah, he's encouraging it, which I thought was very, very nice that he was going to try to. That would bring our contingency down. If I just 69,000, obviously, would be about 270.
Yeah, 220 rough. Just FYI.
But like we said before, we're through the unknown. Now we're left with things like this, which is, well, what do we do, if anything, to change to make it more functional or aesthetics, right?
Yeah.
So then, if we were, this is a hypothetical, but if we were to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do this, and we took the 69, hit on this, and then we did get additional, would that just recoup this? If additional folks would donations or whatever, let's just, if that happened.
We'd
replenish this.
Yeah, it would all go, all the revenues, it would go in the same fund as we're expensing it out, so.
I don't know.
So
What's
no action tonight because it wasn't on the
Maybe
agenda,
direction
but
of
just
what-
What's the timing for the
if it
actual
needs, if
work?
we need to have a special session to just review it with everybody, or like we
What's
have
your
done
timing?
before
When
with
do you need
Lindsay.
to
What's your timing to to keep it going forward?
We actually selected, the walls, I think they're metal stud walls, and that was intentional actually to give
Extra
this
time.
board as much time as possible to make that decision. So like I said, a lot of the underground is already done. I wouldn't anticipate, Adam, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we wouldn't need a decision for a while yet. I think the sooner the better, so that they can start to order some of this equipment and get going, but.
Can I ask a quick question? You mentioned that the 104 was below ground and above ground.
So if the
Yes.
go-ahead's already been, if they decide not to do the above ground, what's the change order on the below ground?
And we split that out, so do you remember off the top of your head what that was?
It's like $5,000, I think.
Oh, so that was.
It's essentially just raceways to get wires where they need to be and drains where they need to be.
I'm not sure I heard.
Well, Art had mentioned that the 104 was the stuff that you guys have already given the go-ahead for on the
Yeah.
below ground and the above ground. So I was like, if you decided not to do the above ground, what was that cost? And he said 5,000.
So, I think we're just trying to figure out, like, the timing of this, obviously, we can't vote on this tonight. But, so our options are special session or wait until the September meeting.
9th meeting.
And
I don't
that
know
won't-
what
Will that
the-
delay it too much, or?
Yeah, I don't know what like a while means
I'm gonna
for
say no.
construction.
Yeah.
I think the board is generally in favor of this, and so I think you
We can put it on
you can't
for
sign
September.
contracts, but I think you start moving ahead,
Planning.
the board's
Yeah.
in favor of it. If that's
Well-
helpful, if that's helpful.
And I'd also suggest, so if we do it formally at the next meeting, I mean, Vic, I think you got a nice document that describes the curriculum. Oh, there it is.
I would just ask that the board go back to the list of things that didn't make the cut the first
Yeah.
time. When we start to talk about expanding programs, what didn't make our list of things
Yeah.
that.
Because that's a big chunk.
Yeah, and my question too is, so we've got a $20,000, what are our other sources within the district to look at this? Like, I know we got a $20,000
From the foundation.
from the foundation, is that, were we told that was the most we can give you, or is there another option to look at?
No, I think
other
there's still
sources?
conversations that can be had there, and I think the foundation could probably come through some more if need be.
Yeah.
But I don't, there's options out there, I think. Either that, if foundation had to go and maybe do a fundraising campaign based around it.
Yeah.
Maybe let them do some of the grunt work. That might be an option too.
Okay, so, I don't know, it feels like this is a conversation that is kind of a broader, to Stacy's point, we had a list, we had a prioritized list, and there were some things that were below that list that we said, well, if we've got money left over, let's look at it. I
It's got to
do
be in
think
the
that,
scope of the bond issue, though, for
which I
these
believe,
funds.
I'm just saying, I think it just deserves a
Yeah,
look,
yeah.
a look. With this in mind, do you guys have a feel for a work session, or would you rather just hold?
I
this to
don't,
the
personally, I
next
don't think it needs a work session. It sounds like it needs some discussion from the administrative team, and I'd ask Lindsay to kind of lead that and come back with, here's our recommendation on how to go forward. I mean, because I think, the board here, we sit here and we go, well, that sounds like a great idea, well, that sounds like a great idea, but, I mean, there is only so much, and so I'd say remember what we did 6 years ago at the end of the high school project was, well, now we've got some contingencies, and how do we prioritize that? So
Adam,
that's my suggestion.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Ted. Adam, or can you give us, can we get the information that they were talking about there was the things that were above the line and they made it, and the things that were below the line or that were cut?
Yeah, I was just looking at that today because I was looking at the fire alarm systems, so.
Okay.
Yeah. I can do that.
I think everything that was, I'll say that made it to the design part of the project that we bid out as alternates, everything was included.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everything was included, so at least at that level, we had included everything that was a priority. I think Art has that list of stuff that was previous to this.
Okay, so we can include that information in the next packet, and I think we'll maybe talk about that in more detail in our next meeting ahead of time to make sure that we're prepared for that conversation. I think that they bring up a good point. We can dust off the list that we had, and I think we have to look at the bond wording to say, what is it? It was a while ago. What did we say we could include, and let's take a look at that. This doesn't exhaust our remaining contingency, but at this point, with a little bit more time left, I think it deserves some thought, so I appreciate that. Hopefully Reynolds has some good luck with some colleagues, and we can also look. Is there anybody that's going to follow up with the foundation on that, or is that all on Vic, or?
I can do it.
We can do that. Okay. All right, so onto this, that wasn't really on this part, but so now we're down to the accepted, denied, change requests. So these are change requests that have already gone through that were under the amount.
Correct.
So is this just an FYI?
Yep.
Pretty much, no action on that? Anybody have any questions or thoughts about that? Okay to proceed?
Okay, thanks.
Adam, I'm sorry, I didn't want to steal your show here.
No.
You,
No, I don't, maybe to mimic some comments that were made before by the administrators about their appreciativeness of interaction between their facilities group and them and our guys. I think the same goes from Story's perspective with their facilities group and all of these people. Being able to adjust and coordinate with us and be flexible in spaces that we need to be in or their guys need to be in and vice versa. So it's been a really good team effort all the way through, so thank you guys.
I think
Good.
B is just that, the consider the proposals from that we've already gone over, right? Correct? So I think we've gone through that, all of 6.1.
You need a
Motion
We need the
on
fire,
C.
like, the fire.
Oh, I thought there was a change request up above.
No, it's a separate item because it's not part of the.
So
The
just
proposal for-
on that item too, so the reason the fire marshal was here is because he has to inspect all of the new spaces before you guys
Yeah,
can
you
put
opened it
students
up.
back in it, so.
Opened it
That's
up.
why he was here and in all the buildings and why that
That's
came
good.
up, so.
Yeah.
He was here, we brought him in 3 or 4 weeks before, and then he'll come again in 2 weeks or next week.
And so this would not.
Or this Friday to give us final.
Contingency. This is Pepple.
Well, we're running it through the project because it's part of the project. Now, in the end, we may need to transfer Pebble or SAVE or whatever the funds would be, but it's part of the project, so we're running it through the fund.
So that will reduce the contingency?
No, it's not part of the contingency.
Okay, gotcha.
It's the district's portion
Okay,
of part of the overall project.
But it is in the verbiage.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's part of the, due to the construction, it's part of the, yeah.
So with that,
Yeah.
will you guys handle all of the coordination of the work?
We will, yes.
Okay.
See, the fire marshal, or the fire inspector said that we don't have to do this tomorrow.
Right. Yep.
So we have to have this done, I think, by the fall of 2020 or the spring of 2021. But we want to, if we're doing these things, we want to make sure that we're getting it taken care of. And as part of the, and it's brought up because of the construction project, you know, once they start digging around it.
So can we add the $66,000 to the change contingency amount? Or should we wait until we hear final dollar amount from you guys on that?
From what I gathered, that this would be outside of the scope of the project.
Yes.
Okay.
It would be part of, it's just the cost of the project, but maybe it would be part of the district's responsibility, like the PEP, or what we would contribute to it later on.
Because there was a certain amount that the district was going to
Yeah.
contribute from the PEPAL, right? That's what we.
We weren't thinking it was part of your
Right,
costs.
not part of, yeah, not part of our funds, but to include it under, say, soft and owner costs.
Oh, yeah, I would call it an owner's cost.
Sure.
Okay.
So,
So we can just plus and minus the same.
Add in another line item right there.
yeah,
That
it would
way,
definitely be an owner's
that way at
cost.
least the dollars and cents are tracked through
Okay.
against.
Yep, understand. Okay.
Does
yep.
that make sense to the board, though, what you just said?
I think so.
So
That's gonna be
on
coming
the
through.
summary sheet that I give, I'll just have a plus and a minus at the bottom that essentially will equal 0. For both.
So I'll move to approve the elementary and intermediate fire equipment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I think that passes. Okay, moving on. Oh, boy. So 6.02 was the new onboarding document that we're trying to come up with for November. So this is, I don't want to spend too much time on this. I think I emailed and let you know that. This is a rough draft. I think we're trying to just get general feedback to say, is this kind of what you were thinking in terms of the level of detail? Anything like that you might want to offer? I think what the idea is, I think there's still some sections that will be filled out.
Yeah,
by
there are. You can say-
Lindsay, Carrie,
yeah.
and those guys. We would come back again and take another swipe at this. But I think turns out to be a considerably longer document than I think we thought, and we just wanted to get some initial feedback. So, any thoughts that you guys want to share, or did you have a chance to look at it? I think we can.
I mean, I appreciate the effort that you put into it. When we first started this conversation, I didn't see it as being an A to Z kind of document. I thought of it more as this is where we are today, going forward with the current board. Just this is our thought process on committees, on using construction management, on these. Yeah. Because some of this to me starts to become a little bit IASB training like.
That's exactly what we thought too.
And that's a really good manual.
Yeah.
But that's like, well, I don't know what it is now. It was 46 pages a while ago, right? So I appreciate the effort that's been put in here, but I wonder if we're starting to lose well, what is it we're trying to convey to the new members as far as Gilbert District?
I think we went off of that outline that we created in that working session. So in a sense, there's a section for each of those there. To your point, I got the same feeling where I didn't want to recreate what was ISB.
Yeah.
So I think we could certainly talk about if there's sections that you might think, you know what, I don't think this needs to be covered in this. We can shoot an email or whatever and consider striking
just say
that.
reference.
Yeah.
Maybe because ultimately,
we consider this
IASB is a great handbook. Right?
And it should be the authoritative source, not our onboarding doc. So we considered making this like a wiki, just having the links, Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely good feedback. I don't know, Andrew, what you.
I'm drinking from a fire hose, but no, I read through it. I thought it was, just from an outsider's viewpoint, it was good. Again, I got a lot of information from ISU. I read the website and stuff too, but overall, still, it gave a little bit, I think, when you get into the vision, but not a ton.
Yeah.
So,
but
again, I think that's good too. I don't even you don't want to. I don't know. I think you got to dabble in a little bit. You got to be careful with it.
Right. Okay. So maybe we can consider taking a look at those that are definitely referencing the IASB and consider striking those. But yeah, I would just urge you guys to just take a look. Maybe shoot your suggestions in terms of those. Something missing, something. I wouldn't worry too much about wordsmithing it yet. It's awfully rough. But if you have ideas about sections, just email me. I think we're more than happy to keep this a consumable doc. So is that okay with you? That's all I wanted. I think was just some initial feedback.
No, I think it covers a lot of bases, and I think it's informational. So the idea is, this is what this board thought we want to communicate to the next board, and so I was generally capable.
Right. We'll just let me know, and this isn't something that we have to have done right now. We just wanted to get it in front of us. Looks like the first reading, we're on to 603.
Yeah, I know you're probably.
On to page 1.
I know you're probably saying, "Oh, I've seen this policy before." Kim had emailed me, and you guys were talking over this, so maybe you know more about this, Deb, than I do. But she said that this was when they were looking back, that those things in yellow were things that we needed to that we had in there before, and that they are not in there for some reason.
Well, yeah, so, and just a little background. So as we were doing this onboarding document, we were referencing back to the policy, IASB and ours, and doing that kind of a check. And it was during that situation that we found this. So as you know, we redid this section in the middle, these 2 or 3 paragraphs, just last fall. When we came back to look at the IASB version, essentially there's the opening paragraph in yellow is, listen, this is something that you're expected to do, right? Then they have this little blurb in italics that says, insert your board policy or board procedures here, which represents the 3 paragraphs that we drafted last fall. And then it has the little closing statement at the end. So what we were proposing is just to have this line up and not to forget the why, essentially, was just to add those 2, the opening and the closing from IASB, and leave the entire 2 to 3 paragraphs in the middle as our existing policy, just to make it a full statement. So,
and then to roll, as you keep rolling, there's the one she's talking about. Then if you go to the next one, there was a regulation that was in there too.
About the R1 is
R1.
the metrics that we have to have. So that's why it came up. It wasn't an intention to undo anything that we did in the fall. It was simply to add that introductory and closing. So, and then return this back.
So everything in the yellow would be added. Is that right, Deb?
That's correct.
And then this would be the first reading. So we're looking for your, I guess, guidance or direction there. If you see something that you don't like that's in there, please let me know.
Yeah.
Another one that was Mr. Pizzetti talked to me about. Let's see, Tim, you want to talk about 10?
Sure. On just the two things real quickly, our policy states if someone quits if they're dual sporting, they have to quit both sports. I don't want to do that for ninth graders who are trying different sports. But I also want to include in that if somebody does that, then as a junior or senior, then they would not be allowed to dual sport yet. And at the bottom is just accountability for our students who are doing the dual sporting. They have to give the coaches a calendar for the next week of where they're going to be for practices, games, and everything. Just so everybody's on the same page and the information is correct. Laura Kaltman for track has done a really good job of, she has a shared document that all the kids just use, which has worked out well, but I want to make sure that's stated that way for the athletes.
Tim, where do we see the dual sporting happen the most? I mean, is there?
It's in the spring and it's track.
Soccer and track.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Questions there? Let's go to the next one. This one was basically combining what IASB had, and that's the top of the page, and then the graduation requirements. When I was talking to Vic, you notice that it says, whoops, yeah, there, thanks. No, that was that's what IASB had put out, so I guess I could put that yellow too. The thing about it is the 2014, 2015, 15, 16, well, we're past those. So we figured out what we would do is just basically say the amount of credits that you have to earn is 49. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then would you look at the credits down below there to see if those are correct? Right there.
Yes.
The difference between our policy and what IASB has is the next things that Gail is running through there. Our policy, and to be honest with you, there's some of that we like. Our policy goes through some things like the Post-Secondary Enrollment Act. Remember when we had the discussions on that? Go up if you would, Gail. Early graduation, enrollment policies, open enrollment. This is one of the things that it does is it gives more information. Dual credit classes too. That's another thing that we've talked about. This gives us more information than IASB maybe has set out. But I guess one of the things that we've talked about is we kind of like the fact that we have some of this in there. Now I have asked, because of the high school, I have asked Vic to, and Cindy would probably be asking you to just to look over it again and make sure everything is right for the high school. You won't know about the open enrollment. Don't worry about that. We'll do that in the district office. But this is what we would propose to you as a first reading for this particular policy.
Do you some of the stuff is covered in other policies, I'm pretty sure, right?
Oh, we have an open enrollment policy.
We have an open enrollment policy.
So maybe we could strike some of those?
Well, yeah, I mean, typically, I would think having that in two places means we have to maintain them so they're
the same. We can look at the open enrollment one now.
So just a suggestion
Yep.
about whether we really want them in two different places, whether it's all in one or whatever.
Yep.
That's something that I think would be a pain to keep in sync.
Sounds good. Another one that we had, and I believe it was the last one on your, maybe not.
There's two.
the facilities and equipment and the fee.
Yeah, we've talked about this administratively for quite some time, and I think Tim did some research with different groups and things like that, different schools, about what they have had. First of all, under this, it talks about that they should go to the superintendent or the board secretary, and really what happens is if someone's renting the facility, that I think they go, a lot of times it's a gym or something like that, they go to Tim. So we taken the board secretary off there and put athletic director in there. And then there was some things in here that, remember when we used to have an ICN classroom? No longer there, so that's what those things are basically wiped out. This one, I'm just trying to see what, one of the things here, I was talking to Mr. Pizzetti about, we spelled this out as far as Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, 4-H. And Tim, what did you say to me that it says in the new policy, it talks about opening that up to those people?
Yeah, it does. It talks about civic groups. It talks about, obviously, the sports teams and our clubs first. And then there's no charge for any of those. And then outside groups, if they're 75% of district kids, they would also qualify for that. Then there is groups like that charge money for admission, like a dance recital or something like that. They would pay in group 2. A nonprofit would pay half of that.
So here's the reg that he's talking about. We maybe get into the fee schedule a little bit about this. And there's a lot of talk. I mean, he has them grouped into 2 different areas. And then there's classrooms, there's stuff at the elementary, at the intermediate, I believe at the middle and the high. How much is it per hour? We have very, very nice facilities, and we're finding that people are wanting to use our facilities more and more. And that's fine, but we want to make sure that as we're looking at this, we're competitive and we're charging the right amount. And again, I think going back to what Tim said, we're not looking at necessarily, there's a criteria what we look at for our kids being involved in this. But Tim, you want to talk about this portion of it? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind?
If you guys take a look at this, our prior policy had priority lists as far as how we would divvy out spaces. So groups associated with the school were first, and then all the way down to outside groups. This is just it's not setting all that up. It's just setting up who pays for the facilities and who does not. And then our former policy had $25 an hour for any space. So a football field with a $600,000 piece of turf on it was the same as a classroom, which just doesn't make sense to me. So in looking at the different facilities and looking at different schools and what they did, this is kind of a grouping of that. I relied pretty heavily on schools that are right around here, including Ames and Norfolk, what they did.
Okay, questions on that? Again, we're not. It's not like we're trying to do anything. Like he said, it doesn't make sense to say $25 and you may want to rent the football stadium. That just doesn't make sense. Or we have a very nice high school auditorium and running that for we got to make sure that the wear and tear on that is something that we want to take into consideration.
Sorry if I missed it, but so what are we doing today?
Today you're just looking at that schedule right there at a first reading.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Today.
Go back.
Today, what do we as a community, as a district charge?
Is it this one, Tim?
It's $25 an hour.
Okay.
Regardless if it's a football field or a
So if somebody's been doing that at the stadium, now all of a sudden they're going to be $400.
But we have very few, and honestly,
I was gonna say that we haven't rented it out very much yet.
no, we don't
We
very
deny
much.
everything.
And it's most groups. I mean, I've told anybody who has been running it, this is what we're doing or planning on doing. So
I guess that would be my question: is how much have we been renting it?
Yeah.
How many actually don't fit Route 1, right? So I just because I'm assuming when we start putting those up there, we're basically saying you don't you really don't want to use this.
And if they don't vary too much from the $25 an hour, it ain't gonna be a deal.
Right.
But the ones that have a lot of variance from the $25 an hour in group 2, that's the ones we want to at least know that it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, but $25 an hour for a football stadium is a little perplexed. Like, I guess I want to know who's expecting that rate, you know?
All I'm saying is, what are we doing today, and what,
And so
there's
they
a
know.
dramatic
Yep.
change, and
Right.
that's okay if folks that are using it know it's coming, or if there
Right.
really aren't that many in group
There really
2.
aren't that many.
Yeah.
It's a few outside groups, and a lot of them have already reserved some of the spaces for this year, so they're probably going to be okay and not have to pay this.
Yeah.
But they will know that next year this is the direction that we're going.
So if it's already reserved, it's
Yeah,
under the.
yeah, I
okay.
didn't, because it wasn't policy yet.
Yeah.
And this is just the first reading, it has to go to 2 and possibly 3.
I guess I won't be having my birthday party at the football stadium.
You still can.
Chances are they won't go for that because of the price, sorry. Okay.
So when you're looking at those first readings, are there any other questions?
I think that's a good.
Where is the group 1 and 2 defined? That's a, I guess.
Is that the bottom?
At the, yeah.
No, yeah,
So
keep
it
going.
talks about the percentage of kids that are in Gilbert,
Oh, it-
district students, is that right?
Oh, there's just a
there it
little
is there.
spot right there.
Where?
It's up at the top.
Oh, at the top of it.
School
Okay.
athletic teams, school clubs, other student groups, civic groups, service groups, nonprofit groups, 75% or more Gilbert School District residents.
That would be for the new policy, right, Tim?
Correct.
So group 2 is for-profit and nonprofit groups from outside of our district.
Okay. So what's an example of when we've actually rented out this football stadium before to somebody that's not part of the district? I mean, have we ever done that?
Yeah, this summer we have a semi-pro football team.
We charge them $25 an hour?
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And they were told other places were $1,000.
Yeah. Well, they spawned some suckers, it sounds like.
Ouch.
They were expecting to pay $1,000.
Yeah.
I can just imagine that.
That would be what's that the
$25.
donation for our
Tournament.
commercial kitchen.
And just because we have rental rates, so again, we have full right to deny anybody.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put our rental rates and think all of a sudden we're open for business.
No, there's another policy that states about the kind of uses of our, right? Like, it can't be for a certain,
Right.
yeah.
One of the things that we do too is when there's something that's of question, we will check with our insurance agent to say, hey, this is a group that wants to do this. Are we being, is it, or is there any chance that we could be liable? We don't want to set the school district up in a bad situation. So, I mean, it's not like, we're not going to just try to, make business out of this whole
But I
thing.
think there was some RAGBRAI folks that wanted to
Yeah, they wanted to
stay here,
camp.
and then when they found out they couldn't drink and stuff like
Yeah.
that, they moved on.
I remember that.
There's rules,
Handled it.
yeah. Okay.
Questions? Okay, first reading, so.
Okay. Okay, so next, 6.04 is the resolution approving the revenue purpose statement. That's going to be on our ballot November 5th.
If this was approved.
If this is approved.
Yep.
No pressure.
So-
Well, don't we have to have this though by November? So we don't really have a choice.
Okay, so basically, where we're currently at, it doesn't meet the law changes.
Right.
So what the message that Allers is sending out in Piper Jaffray is, before we go further, they're suggesting everybody to update it, to match it, so then you're not, if you're planning for the future, planning in a long range, that you're current with the most current law.
That's right.
So you're going to see a lot of schools taking this to the poll in November.
Right, because you want to do it now instead of risk putting it on something with controversial.
Right, and we're not, it'll pass, I'm sure, but if it doesn't, there's language that, we go back to what we currently have and, and things like that. And that's what Allers is doing and suggesting. So basically, this basically is the language we need to meet the new changes of the law that was passed July 1st. And then the message we were sending out, I did this news release. And it's a starting point because I just put information down. Because we want to educate, but yet we can't tell them how to vote, correct? So I presented this here just to have some feedback on, we need to get this message out just like the open position. So suggestions, conversation of what are we missing? Can we simplify it anymore? We need to educate, but how do you simplify with educating at the same time?
Can the last sentence be all entirely bold in a different color? Or can it be, can we bold
Yeah,
that?
we can.
That whole
Yeah, this
sentence is like pretty
It's
critical.
important for them to know,
Yeah.
And this is my language, so if this is coming from you guys, please feel free to put your twist to it, I just wanted to get out this message as soon as we can along with the board openings.
Right. And then there's
So-
additional communications that we will have. This is just one.
Yeah. So,
No, I think this is a good start, Gail, and I'd start with that this is going to be on the ballot in
Okay.
November 5th, right? So, well, why am I reading this? This is on the ballot. This is why it's on the ballot. And then, like you said, it's got to stay factual. I don't know if there's going to be a candidate form or anything like that, but there's an opportunity too to just have an educational piece on this. But and obviously, I think the website should continue to reference that. And like you said, it's factual. It's not, well, you're supposed to vote yes, but I don't know that it's going to need a committee or a group to make sure that it passes, but I think this is a good start to educate the community.
I think we're, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think where people, like when I talk to Allers and, they're not Gilbert and they're not used to Gilbert, but they're concerned about, November 5th, there's so many more people going to the polls. So if they're going uneducated, will it be a yes or will it be a no? So the main thing we want to get out there is to let them know about it so they know before they go what that question is.
We should have a contact on there as well, so that, hey, if you have questions about the, who do you contact?
Further
Because
information.
I think that always opens that.
Yeah.
You put a name and a number there, or email, or whatever that is, that says, hey, we're open to talk about it, there's transparency, and you probably won't get a lot of calls, but I think it at least.
Another thing that we did and this is different, I know, when we did the bond, we made sure that our staff knows what's going on there. Now, again, we cannot say vote yes or vote no, but we can make sure that they understand that this is going to be up on November 5th and what it entails.
And we could probably say that this has been critical to the improvements that we've done to our facilities over the past decade, and I think that's factual.
How this money has been used in the past.
But, parent-teacher conferences, we could have just informational pieces. I don't know if it's legal, but everybody votes at the Gilbert Lutheran Church, so could you even have some informational pieces that day?
Yeah.
Right? Just so that.
Oh, I don't know about that thing.
Yeah.
I don't.
But anyway, I'd say the more that we can be out with it.
It has to be, there's so many, you can't have
Prior to
information.
that, but prior to that, having that.
There's plenty of places before that, and there's plenty of opportunities before that, so.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So do you need us to approve this?
Can
we have to.
can the foundation promote it?
Yes.
So that's what we should do.
As long as the school doesn't use funds or tell people how to vote.
I think if we just get some vote yes signs out, stick them in the grass.
Over the roundabout, there you go.
I think that a lot of people will be like, well, I looked to see how many yard signs are out. And and you kind of want to hit it, maybe, before there's frost in the ground, maybe.
There's regulations about how close to the voting site, that's about the only thing.
And the election, those are all.
It's all part of the questions and answers, Q&A.
That costs peanuts and so.
Yeah, I don't know if I would throw money towards it, but.
Oh, yeah, we sure could.
So do we want to consider consider approving this? Is there a motion?
Andrew, do you have any questions about a revenue report this statement?
No.
Okay. So when we do this, the vote needs to be, since it's part of it needs to be a,
Roll call.
roll call vote.
And we may want to have just kind of the elevator speech too, if you're just grabbing somebody and you
See him.
have,
Need to have a
you
common
have
message.
30 seconds to hit this home.
Yep.
How would you say that without kind of running foul of
But this
what
is-
we can do as a district? And maybe we have one for district employees and we have one
Right.
for not that are promoting for it.
Yeah. So this is just for your,
This is to basically, we're approving the resolution,
Yep.
and then this will allow me to take the next step to take it to the auditor to get it on the ballot. So it'll be a question at the November 5th ballot.
okay.
Move approval.
Second?
Second.
Now, did you say we needed a roll call for this?
Yeah, I'm gonna do a roll call.
Do we have to do it? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Tyler?
Here. Yes.
Kim's
Still.
absent. Okay. John?
Yes.
Deb?
Yes.
And Andrew?
Yes.
The actual resolution has it by roll call, so
Okay.
got to be official.
6.05, we talked about this just so for your awareness. I think we have a lot of these repetitive, year in, year out.
Yep. Can I interrupt you for a second? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just want Tim to tell, I asked him the question, I said, well, what's the difference in what we do every year and what we're doing with this situation? And Tim, what is the difference from our current situation?
We have 2 trainers that are here all the time. This situation here would be students who are going into athletic training to come and internship with our athletic trainers that we have already in place.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but that's one of the things that when I asked him the same question, so.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
We are, yeah. So what I was going to just mention before that is you might notice that some of these have been moved to the consent agenda, just to help kind of with the end of the meeting. But certainly we should pull out any of those that we want to discuss. And Andrew, I don't want to glaze over these because I think sometimes it's helpful to know what these are. But.
Tim, is there any liability issues that we should have to worry about in this situation?
No.
Okay, that's the only thing that I would question.
So and we talked at the agenda setting meeting that if this is an annual agreement, that it's been just how it's always been. If it's not, then we won't put it on the consent agenda.
Yes.
And so that's kind of the thought process. So you can have that comfort level, Andrew, of, hey, this is a renewal, not something new. If it's something new, we'll put it above the line. But that consent agenda really speeds up the meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Recommend approval.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that passes. 6.06 is the handbook discussion. Now, is this something that I noticed that there was a folder that had the handbooks from each building, athletics, and the computer, technology, sorry.
The
technology.
The substitute is new.
Oh.
We've never had a substitute handbook before. Carrie might want to just,
Yes.
because we have training going on.
Yeah, we're training right now. We have invited new and previous subs that have been in our district to come in and go through the new, we're back to a different online, it's called ASAP, signing up system to get subs. And also just, we want to be welcoming. And so just kind of going over what some of our policies are. And another thing we're going to do as new people come to our district, new subs, we're just going to do a little bit different vetting where they have to just come in and meet with us, and just so we can, make sure that this is really somebody we'd want to put in front of our students.
So then they become a part of the pool.
Yes,
pool.
that's right.
They've done that.
Perfect.
Got it.
A little bit of Betty.
Oh, I thought you said something. Yeah.
I thought you said
I thought you said something else. So do you want to how do we want to go through these?
How do you want to do it, Deb?
It's up to you guys now. I noticed that you highlighted the changes, which I appreciate a great deal. Is there anything that anybody would like to pull out from any of these handbooks? Maybe questions or anything? There was a lot. I know a lot. I had one question if I could, it was actually asked of me from patrons, so I said I would ask it. And I think it speaks to the dress code for some of the lower grades. And this particular mother was questioning the visible undergarment. And I think what the question was if, how do I say this? I'm on video. So as girls or guys, no, as just girls, if they're wearing a tank top, it's possible that accidentally undergarments could show. I think that the policy they were unclear about in the intermediate book that said, if this is an accident, is this really a dress code violation? They were quite concerned that it would be a embarrassing situation for a kid. So I mentioned I would bring that up.
Okay.
I also said, I bet you if it's that, nobody would mention one word. But this mother said, I think this is a good point. We do have a lot of kids who are rule followers, who want desperately to follow the rules and who might otherwise worry about something they maybe don't need to worry about because that's not really the spirit of the dress code. I said I would bring it up, so I did. That was it. There was just some confusion.
So what was the parent asking to do or to,
She wanted some,
clarification?
I think she wanted some clarification is all she wanted.
Okay.
It was just to understand that I think it wasn't in the high school one and the middle school one. I think they talk about making sure that font sides are covered. In the intermediate handbook, she said she pulled out the section and it said, it just lists, right? Is that right, Amy? It just lists like a bulleted piece. I'm trying to find the page. Maybe you have it right there.
Yeah, it's just a list.
And I think it was just a clarification, and maybe that's something that can be handled at back to school night or something like that. I'm not suggesting a wording.
Yeah.
She was just concerned that I think she wasn't saying that the policy shouldn't be in place. Certainly, just that she wanted to make sure that it was clear for her kiddo.
The following student attire is deemed inappropriate for school. Exposed undergarments?
Yeah, that was it.
On page 15.
I mean, we all get that, right?
It'd be kind
Obviously.
of an appropriateness thing. I think we can rely on judgment for that.
I think so. Exactly right. But I think if you're reading to the rule of it,
Yeah.
I think they will just.
No, thanks for sharing that concern.
I think that either one of those building principals would use good judgment on how to handle that.
Absolutely. And
I'm not saying that the person was saying that they weren't. I just think it's communication. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you guys want to say anything, or just take it for what it's worth?
Now, the school technology agreement, I mean, that probably looks familiar. We talked about that, not that long ago, but I included in the handbook on it.
Right, it's got the different, damage one,
Yeah.
damage two, damage three.
Yeah, that's on,
That's a good.
yeah, fines, first offense, second offense, and third offense.
Yeah.
I know the employee handbook, that basically just cleaning it up. There's a lot of board policies in there, and quite honestly, I'm looking forward to cleaning that up when we can do a combined one, just, and maybe, and reference it more to the current ISB's version of it, that they have.
Any other questions on the handbooks or?
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Handbooks are good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy, for that too.
Sure.
So it looks like next is summary of financial reports.
I don't have a lot here, so I won't spend much time. We're in July, which is, it's kind of limbo.
It's a good month.
But the July, it just has the actuals, not much activity. And we still have a lot of revenue and expenses going through the fiscal year of fiscal year 19 yet. So the only thing that really is the actuals, and the information won't, and Andrew, for your sake, the budgeting process doesn't really happen until September, October, once we pay our salaries for the first time, and then that drives our budget for the year. And then that gets driven into this document. So everything gets updated in September, October. So it's really, I'm using last year's information for budgeting, so it's not really accurate information, but the actuals for July is the correct and the correct. So that's what's going on there. And I just want to mention that the next 2 weeks we should be cleaning up fiscal year 19. So then once I finalize the CAR, which is due September 15th, certified annual report, then that will be driven into this for the ending number for the beginning balance here. And PEPL has lots of activity going on, still lots of transactions for fiscal 19 and the current year. And the PEPL budget, I did spend some time, and so the 17 and 18 carryover is an actual number. If it's estimated, I colored it and put EST because those are still changing. And I thought Deb did a pretty good report for nutrition.
She's not talking about me.
So we've got some work to do there. And then on the bills, construction, not much activity other than payroll and the final tuition bills. And PEPLs mainly are yearly licenses, subscriptions, things like that. Does anybody have any questions or concerns on? Now coming up, the annual meeting. I know Kim had a question the last meeting we had about, okay, the annual meeting and the reorganizational meeting. I did have a webinar on that, and the only restriction is we have to have our annual meeting after August 1st.
Okay.
So when I got done with the webinar, ISFIS was, and they had a legal team from Cedar Rapids there, and they're saying that they would suggest keeping things consistent as a board. And if you're used to having your annual meeting the same night as your organizational meeting, to keep that same practice. So with that is being the case, then we would have our annual and reorganizational in November. And the only thing we need to do at the annual meeting is basically close fiscal year 19 books, which will be after September 15th, which is the certified annual report, which is due. And so we'll have preliminary figures and things like that, but the actual closing the books, approving the special ed deficit, looking at the certified annual report, that will be in November instead of September like in the past. We'll keep it on the same annual and reorganizational the same night. The old board has to approve the books for the fiscal year, and the new board will start with the new information. So that's the only requirement. It has to be after August 1st, and that was the suggestion they said, is just keep consistent practice. So.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep, sounds good. Okay, any other questions about that? Okay, thank you, Gail. There's nobody here for public forum, so I think we're good with that.
Yep.
Move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody have anything they'd like to pull out from the consent agenda? If not,
If you didn't notice, there were some changes.
There were changes snuck in, like
the personnel changed. We had some people back out, so I pulled them off. That happens in Mike's building.
You mean back out? They were gonna work and then they backed out.
They accepted and then the next day they called and
yeah,
backed out. Sorry.
And so that may have changed a little bit, but I wanted that to be. We're getting so close to the new school year.
All of our positions are filled, though, right?
No.
Not.
I mean, teaching staff, yes.
Oh.
Support staff, no.
Entertaining motion.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Consent agenda passes. We have, looks like there's 3 items on the calendar. We have what I think you stated these earlier, the 16th to the 22nd, we have our back to school meetings. And just to reiterate, Kim will be speaking on the 20th, when the
Yep.
teachers are back.
Yep.
August 23rd, first day of school. Adam has said we will be all ready and done with all of the changes. We will be ready to have class that day, so that's awesome news. And then the 9th is the next meeting. Any other things we need to add to the calendar? No? Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Deb, did
Good God.
Deb, did they show you? We have
Yep, I can do that.
to turn on the